Okay, hopefully we get everything back. And you guys will just have to let me know if things are back in sync again. Looks like when I plugged in the HDMI cable, I might have knocked the other cable loose. I'm not sure if it froze on me or what happened there, but we'll be back here in just a minute. And hopefully you guys will see me again here in just a minute. We'll give everybody a chance to get back, and then, like I said, we'll check and make sure audio is back in sync, hopefully. Everything look okay? Are we back in sync? Okay, so I want to do this one more time. There's a switch right up here in the front. I can just hit that. I don't have to short anything out. And then we'll move over to the other input, and we should see it go into the BIOS. There we go. Now, just for giggles, we can throw a regular solid state drive on it and install Windows 10 just to make sure that that works okay. I'll just grab one of these spare SSDs that have been sent in. Let's see, what do we have here? I'll grab one off the bottom. Here's an ADATA. Here's an ADATA drive that was sent in by a fellow viewer to be used in a future PC giveaway. So I'm going to need this, and I'm going to need a SATA cable, which I think I have in the box. Nope, I don't. Let me find a SATA cable. Yeah, that'll work. That'll work. Yeah, we'll turn this back off. And what I want to do now is plug the SATA drive in, and we'll do a quick Windows 10 install on here. We need to give it some power. And then we'll plug it into one of these ports. Now, the customer that had this system, he doesn't want the system. He said, Carey, you can have this and do whatever you want with it. So that's why I've made so many changes carte blanche. You know, I don't have to check in with the customer with regards to changing out that overkill power supply or worrying about putting an NVMe drive, because this system has no owner at this point. And it's just a little fun project on the side, and wasn't quite sure I was going to be able to get it running again. And I thought, you know, when I have time, I'll mess around with it. And here we are. So I have no idea, once I get this thing back together, what's going to happen to it. I really don't want to sell it to anybody or give it away, because I'm afraid it's just going to break again. These X99 and X299 systems, they just have a habit of being very unreliable. They'll run for maybe a year or two if you're lucky, and the next time it breaks, it'll be outside of warranty, and the board and CPU will have to be replaced. We could reuse everything else. We can reuse the RAM, the storage, the case, the power supply, the optical drive, but we won't even attempt to replace the motherboard and CPU. It'll just cost too much money to be worth it. I see Bill Leatherland is joining us. Hey, Bill, good to see you, my friend. And here we go with our Windows 10 installation. Probably seen me do this a million times. I think I need a chair. You know you're getting old when you make that noise when you sit down. Windows 10 Pro. Accept the license agreement. Custom. Oh, this one had Windows on it. We're going to delete that. Oh, I know why. I had cloned all those Dells onto these drives, so all I had to do was put the drive in. So if I pull this drive and reuse it again, I'll just clone it again. Save me the effort. There we go. So while we're waiting for Windows 10 to install, if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. You'll notice these fans are not turning here on the graphics card because the card is just outputting basic video. It's not even getting warm. When we run some diags or benchmarks on this, you'll see these fans kick on when they need to in order to bring the heat down. And then it helps reduce the noise and the dust that builds up. But we're off to the races. It's looking good. I don't know for how long, but it's good for now. Someone said the video looks blurry. That's because you're watching it in low resolution. You've got to click the little gear icon in the lower right corner of the video and select a higher resolution that can accommodate whatever bandwidth you have from your internet service provider. The stream is unlisted. It shouldn't be unlisted. It should have gone back out as a regular. Oh, I know what happened. Hold on a second. Let's take a look here at the properties. Thank you for pointing that out. When I stop and restart the stream like that, YouTube resets all of these settings, which is really annoying. And that means I have to go back in here and reset everything again. Now we should be back and running. We should be publicly listed now, and people should be able to start flooding into the chat room now when they get that notification. So yeah, that's what happens when the stream locks up like that and I have to restart. So we're going ahead and installing Windows 10 on the board, and you can use DVR mode and rewind this video to see what you've missed if you're just joining us. Can I use my graphics card without a fan? Well, I'm pretty sure the fan was put there for a reason. I would not advise you to use a graphics card without a fan, or it'll probably overheat. You should either replace the fan or replace the entire graphics card. If you are not going to use it for gaming, if you're just doing stuff like surfing the web, the graphics card probably won't get hot enough to need the fans. But I say the word probably. It's really hard to know. Like I say, the manufacturers don't include those fans because they have extra fans laying around they're trying to get rid of. They're there because they need to be there. Let's see. Look through the chat here. Very good. So we're just waiting for Windows 10 to install on this x299-A system. It does appear that it was diagnosed properly. It was a bad motherboard, as I suspected. I assume it's got the latest BIOS on it. I don't have any idea. Right now, I just want to make sure that it installs Windows 10 okay. And if it does, I can pull the graphics card back out of it and then go ahead and fix it, secure it rather, into the case. And then I can secure the graphics card back in. And then I will have to contact Asus about that M2 standoff and screw. As I mentioned, this is just a system for fun. The person who sent it to me doesn't want it back. And I don't know what I'll do with it when I get it working. I enjoy the challenge of fixing things. The problem when you run a business is the liability you take on. You know, if I were to sell it or give it away, it would just be a thorn in my side forever. So I'll find something for it here. I'll give it a task here that I can do, that I can use it for, rather, where I don't have to rely on it, because I do expect it will probably die in a year or two. I would love to see an X99 system running for 5 years. I'd like to see one that's been running without a repair for 5 years, because I haven't. I've never seen one run that long. That doesn't mean they don't run that long. It means I've literally never seen one that hasn't needed a repair in 5 years. That's all I'm saying, guys. Doesn't mean you don't have one. Doesn't mean yours hasn't run. Just means I've never seen it. You can tell me I've got one running for 100 years. I don't care. I've never seen it. I still haven't seen it. So I generally advise customers against these, you know, the Threadrippers, the X99s, and the X299s. I find them to be profoundly unreliable. And for the most part, they don't really run any better. But installing heat sinks on them is a piece of cake. On the X299 and X99, I love putting the CPU heat sinks on because it's so easy. It's just a shame they didn't make that same socket style for the 1151 chips, or 1156, or 1155, or 1150, any of those. Now what's happened is the system is rebooted back to the flash drive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the power button down until the system shuts off. There we go. I'm going to unplug the flash drive because we don't need it anymore. And then we'll turn it back on, and it should boot to the solid state drive over here and continue the Windows install. Everything Windows needed for the install was copied to the SSD. Looks like the latest firmware is 1704, and I don't know what we have on here. We'll find out once Windows 10 finishes its process. We'll go in there and check it out. Thank you, Alhaj Tepej, for providing the link to me. Hopefully I won't need it. We'll see. Tom Van Balen has contributed €2. He says, good job, Carey. Another donation from me. Thank you, Tom. That's taking a long time to come up. What is it doing? CCTV users just contributed £2. He says, nice to see you live streaming again, Carey. Well, thank you. Thanks for joining me. I want to know why this system's taking so long to boot, though. Guess I'll just be patient. See what it does here. There it goes. All right, United States, yes. US, yes. Skip. Skip. New. Username will be user. No password. No Cortana. Dustin Fuller's just contributed $5. Thank you, Dustin. Okay, I guess I can plug it into the network and get Windows updates right now. So let me grab a network cable and run that. I always like to make sure Windows Update works properly. I don't want to slipstream or embed any of the updates into an install disk, because I'd hate giving the system to the customer and find out 2 months later they haven't been getting updates because I never tested it. So I like to do everything just the way the customer would when the customer gets the system, so I can expect the system to run exactly for me the way it runs for them. That's the idea behind that process. Besides, it would take hours for me to build those slipstreams, only to have to keep remaking them every single time another update comes out. It's actually faster for me to just do it as I need it. If I was building 10 or 15 systems a day or more, that'd be a different story. It's installing quick. That's good. Gary wants to know what I think of delidding a CPU. No professional technicians delid a CPU. If you want to guarantee you don't get a job in corporate America in the IT department, you tell the interviewer you like to delid CPUs. I promise you they will not hire you. That's something kids and hobbyists and enthusiasts do. In the professional workforce, you would be considered dangerous and they would not want to hire you. In most cases, most IT department managers don't want people like that. They want somebody who follows the policies and procedures of the corporation, not somebody who wants to, put on liquid coolers, delid. That's something home users do. No company will pay you for that. So I've been in the industry for 28 years, I keep saying, and you guys really need to understand the difference between what a real paid technician does for a living and what somebody at home doing stuff with their own computer and making YouTube videos does. They are very, very unrelated. The stuff you see on other tech YouTube channels is nothing any corporate, like if you wanted to do this for a living, if you wanted to be a tech, none of that stuff you're watching, or not most of that stuff you're watching on the big YouTube channels is nothing any corporation would pay you to do. And that's why I do my channel, because I really feel like it's a great and rewarding job to work in IT support, desktop support in corporate America. But it's not gaming, it's not, you're not playing games, you're getting paid to fix as many computers in the day as possible. And you'll probably be asked to work evenings and weekends because there's more to fix than you could possibly imagine. And you'll be told how to fix it. You'll be told exactly how they want the computers configured. Every computer in that corporation must be configured the same, and rules will be enforced. You're not allowed to come up with your own ideas without approval from management. And it's just not like you're at home just messing around with stuff. A lot of money is at stake. So that's why that process is there. And that's why that job is so important and so rewarding, to know how much money you're saving a company. And it's very rewarding. So, but delidding and stuff like that, you can watch just about any YouTube tech channel and talk about that stuff, because none of them actually work as a real tech. Well, when I say none of them, I mean the vast majority of them. They're just hobbyists like you, and they just fired up a camera. And who knows, maybe they turn that into a job. I fix computers for a living, and I can be sued if I make a backup that doesn't work. I can be sued if anything I sell causes damage to the company. I can be sued. There's lots of reasons I can be sued. There's a lot of liability I take on, and there's a lot of stress and pressure to get it done. But I very much enjoy it, and I encourage anybody who wants to seek that out, just understand what to expect. Well, the stuff you see on most of these YouTube tech channels is not what you're going to do for a living. Not in any corporate IT support job. But that's a good thing, because you'll actually do real work that matters. Do IT professionals worry about cable management? You know what? It depends on where you work. Some places, cable management's not an issue because a lot of times they're buying Dells or HPs and they're just cabled the way they're cabled, and they just want to make sure they're up and running. If you're running, or rather working for a smaller organization, it may be that the owner of the company does care, but in most cases, no. Cable management does not really play a role in the vast majority of professional IT, unless you're working for the consumers. But when you're working in corporate America, there's no case windows, there's no RGB lighting, and so nobody's going to see any cables. They don't want to pay you to mess around with zip ties for an hour while the employee's computer you're working on can't work. So now they're paying you and they're paying the employee, and no work is getting done. But there are some companies where that does matter, but they're few and far between. If you have any questions about the difference between working as a professional and just being a hobbyist on YouTube, I'd certainly be happy to clarify that for you, because it is a totally, completely different world. The skill set you need as a professional is so critical, it can cost you your job and it can cost you your livelihood. When you're just doing stuff in your own home or for friends or family, or when you're making YouTube videos, you can screw up all day long with no consequences other than to yourself, or maybe the number of viewers or the amount of money you make on YouTube. Nobody's suing you. Nobody's going to come after you for damages. Nobody's calling you at 2 o'clock in the morning saying you need to get over here right now, the server's down. I imagine if you went into a hospital and you went into the emergency room and the emergency room said, I'm sorry, our computers are down, you'll have to come back later, you would probably say, what? I can't come back later, I'm dying. And they say, well, sorry, computers are down. That's the difference between a professional and a hobbyist. A hobbyist would say, sorry. A professional can't say sorry. A professional has to get the job done. And if somebody dies, you know, people have to work on that hospital equipment. Lives depend on it. Hospitals have been infected with ransomware. There was a piece on 60 Minutes, was it last week or the week before, talking about a hospital getting infected with ransomware, and the whole entire system went down. And I just think to myself, what a terrible IT department they have that left their backups online, so even the backups were encrypted. And it could have caused people their lives. So when you're considering deleting a CPU versus getting a heart machine up and running so that you can stay alive, you'll understand my attitude is like, deleting is like one of the dumbest, most pointless and expensive things you could do that really doesn't make a real world difference. And fixing a 5-year-old computer that's keeping a heart machine working, that is all the difference in the world. So yeah, I take what I do much more seriously because there's a lot at stake. There's nothing at stake except your own inconvenience when you're doing it for yourself. But that is what makes what I do so important to me. You know, if anybody could just step in and do it, I'd feel like, well, why should I do it? Someone else could do it. I find very few people have YouTube videos that actually work in an industry and show you how they work. You know, guys like Subaru Mike, myself, the guys at $300 Data Recovery, they're few and far between. The vast majority, 99% of YouTube videos are just hobbyists and enthusiasts showing you what they love to do, but they have actually no professional experience in doing it. And I think it's going to be a big shock to you if you are misled into believing that's what your job's going to be like, because it won't be. It won't be like what you see on most YouTube channels. And I think if you go into it with the right expectations, it can be a very rewarding and a career that you very much are very glad that you took. I know I'm very glad that I made the decision to get into this. But it is a battle. It is a battle trying to educate home users the difference, you know. And it's nothing wrong with being a home user. There's nothing wrong with deleting a CPU. But if you want to do it for a living, you won't have time to play like that. You will be busy working. And if you're not busy working, you're not making any money. And if you're deleting, it's costing you money. You could damage your machine. So it just seems like somebody's got too much time on their hands and maybe doesn't have a job. Or somebody's got a completely different job, like somebody works in some other industry and they blow off steam by deleting a CPU, and they've got money to pay for all the expense of that, including damaging it. Very few people do something right the first time, and it's an expensive lesson when you screw up. But, you know, most hobbies are expensive. So I'm not here to tell you you shouldn't do it. I'm here to tell you I don't do it, and customers have never paid me to do it. And I wouldn't do it because I wouldn't take on the liability. I would just tell the customer to buy a faster CPU. Okay, let's go back to Windows Update. Let's check for some more. And I have to say, you know, there's a lot of people who are quick to correct others, but I would very much encourage you to go back to school. And I think you'll realize how much you don't know. You can be a self-proclaimed anything, but when you actually get tested by an instructor and are given tests to test what you know in order to get a passing grade, there's a very big difference between earning your position and self-claiming it. You know, if you, for example, decide this piece of land is mine versus, you know, working hard and earning the money and paying for the land, there's a big difference there. It really is. There's people who talk, and then there's people who actually have the credentials behind them. And I find most of the people with the credentials don't have time to mess around with talking to people on the internet, at least not in and a YouTube type. You'll see it sometimes on Reddit. They'll have specialists there. But for the most part, they're busy working, and when they're done working, they're home and they're gaming, and they don't want to get involved and educate people. They don't care. It's kind of a selfish world we live in. So it motivates me to continue doing what I'm doing and try and recruit people, you know, say, hey, you should think about getting into this, but don't think it's going to be like these other tech channels. You're not going to be working like that. But what you are going to be doing is going to be very rewarding and very important. Like, you're going to understand the actual gravity of what you're doing and the consequences of your actions if you don't do it right, and how much money it's going to cost, even if it costs you your job because you took way too long, or you screwed something up so badly the company just fires you. Companies have even sued employees when they get particularly nasty. That never happened to a hobbyist. You'll never be in that situation. So yeah, it's just it's a different it's a completely different set of stresses and consequences. But that's why you get paid to do it. That's why people pay money to go to school to get their degrees, so they can earn that kind of money. Let's run my optimizer. See, Acronis is joining us. Hello, Acronis. Welcome in. What version is Uncle Carey's Windows 10 Optimizer on? 1.3 is 1.3. Let's reboot. That looks good. Let's take the flash drive out of here. All right, let's see what version of BIOS we've got on here. Oh, I guess I need the flash drive back. It's got the CPU-Z utility on the same flash drive. That's just because I like plugging and unplugging my flash drive a lot. That's why. Sure, that's why I did it. All right, let's take a look here. Oops, nope, that's not what I want. Come on. CPU-Z. I'll just run it off the flash drive. What were we on? 1704 on the BIOS, right? Let's see. 1704, I think, was the latest. And this has what? 1503. That's quite a bit older, isn't it? Well, I guess we should go and do that now then, shouldn't we? Let's go ahead and update that BIOS. Let's see. Wonder why Asus would send me a replacement motherboard with an old BIOS. That's not good. Let's move that over to the BIOS flash drive. Okay, so what I want to do now is shut this machine down. So I just pulled my utilities flash drive out, and we're going to go to the BIOS here. We'll just keep hitting delete until we get into the BIOS. Ben Fitzpatrick has contributed $5. He says, "You rock, Carey. Enjoy $5 on me towards something fun. You rule, my friend." Hey, thank you, Ben. I appreciate that. Just completely ignored my keyboard presses. I was pressing the keyboard the whole time. I got nothing. That's frustrating. Let's do it again. We'll hit the power button here. That should shut it down. Wait for that to power off. There it goes. Turn it back on. This time I'll try F2. I think delete or F2 will get me into the BIOS. Where are the dogs? They're sleeping. They're just kind of hanging out. It's a hot day outside, and they tend to be less energetic on a hot day. There we go. And let's go to advanced mode, which is F7. We'll scroll over here to Tool, Asus Easy Flash Utility, Storage Devices. Got to be that storage device. That's our BIOS. Do you want to update version 1704? Yes, I do. And we're off to the races, updating the BIOS. Exciting times. It's riveting television. Hey, what are you watching? I'm watching a BIOS update, man. No way. Totally. Is it like the Kentucky Derby? Kinda. We're almost there. Update is successful. If you corrupt your BIOS during an update, what are the options? Never seen a BIOS ever corrupt during an update, so I can't tell you. If I ever see one happen, I'll let you know. Trying to fix something. You're trying to fix a problem you don't have, and if you can figure out a way to make that happen, please tell me. You're worried about something that's not really possible. All right, let's do F1. If I go outside and a comet and a meteor fall out of the sky and hit me, what are the odds I'm going to survive? Does that happen to you or anybody you know? No, but I'm just curious. Okay. Okay, very good, very good. I'm gonna go ahead and delete that BIOS now off of the flash drive because I don't want to confuse it with anything else in the future. I'm going to keep the Z370 BIOS on there because I'll be installing more of those boards in the future, I think. In fact, I got another one coming up here next week, I think. I think. What's the CPU in here? Actually, let's just run CPU-Z. You can run the Heaven benchmark on it just for fun. There we go. Done with that. Let's see, what are our specifications on this machine here? No idea. I can't remember. So we're running an Intel Core i7 7800K, 3.5 gigahertz. Board has 1704 on it, which is good. 32 gigs of RAM. Everything looks good. Probably should download the latest NVIDIA driver, which I had on the flash drive. I keep unplugging like an idiot. Keep thinking I'm done with it. I'm not with it today at all. I'm going to take it back out again, just so I can plug it in 10 minutes. All right. What's going on, Lyle? Lyle. You're Jimmy. You're not Lyle, you're Jimmy. Look at this boy down here. Let's see this boy here. Oh, what's going on, boy? What's going on, boy? You want to push against me? He likes to push against me. You can't see. Jimmy's in the way. You're in the way. Oh, let's give you a massage. Back and forth. Back and forth. Back and forth. Oh, he likes that. Yes, he likes them. Are you jealous? Yeah, you're jealous. What's up, old man? Staying on the cold floor because it's hot today. Squeak. Squeak. I think you need some oil. You're squeaking. You need some WD-40? Just scratch your leg, see if he stretches his leg out. Just rub that leg. Oh, stretch it out. Stretch it out. Oh, there it goes. Stretch it out. You're just a big old hairy monster. You're just a big hairy monster, you are. You are. Good boy. And you too. You too. Yes. You got the face of a dog. You have a dog face. I don't know if anybody's ever told you that before, but you have a dog face. Oh, no, I got you. I'm not giving you back. I got your face. So you just pulled it out and then pushed it right back in. Oh, you talking back? Oh, get up, old man. Oh, that's a heck of a stretch, Jimmy. All right, the Jimmy and Lyle hour. Don't trip on my cables, boy. Come on. Move your furry butt. What's up, boy? What's up? This is a good boy. Oh, I got this face. You got eye boogers. Get those eye boogers off your face. Oh, plop. What? What? You need a belly rub too? Yeah. Oh, he likes it. What you think of that? More? What if I don't want to? What if I don't want to? All right, let's see if we can get this benchmark to run. F9. F9. There it goes. Now we're benchmarking. You gotta be right on my cables, huh? What good are you? What good are you? Huh? You good for keeping the floor warm? Is that what you do? Is you a good boy? Are you a good boy? Do you want a cookie? Oh, what'd I say? Oh, I don't want dog lick on me. No. All right. Lyle. So a viewer sent you guys some chicken, duck, beef jerky. The dogs just love this stuff. come over here. Come over here where they can see you and you can show off. Show how smart you are. Come here. Paw. I just wanted one. Okay. All right. Come here, Fuzzy. Come here. Come over here. You gotta get in your spot. Get on your mark. I didn't even ask for your paw. Were you saluting? All right. Good boy. I gotta wash my hands now, guys. I got dog lick and dog jerky. Oh, I can't wait to get this terrible floor pulled up out of my kitchen. You see this floor I'm walking on? It's god-awful. It's terrible. Soon, one day soon. I probably won't be able to broadcast for a week when it's happening because it's everywhere. It's going to take about a week to get all this tile pulled and replaced. And I'll probably be paying for it for the next 3 years. I can't wait till I can point that camera down and you guys can see a nice floor one of these days. Maybe next month if I'm lucky. We'll see. There we go. Whew, something smells like it's cooking. It's coming from the graphics card. Man, that thing puts off a lot of heat. Holy smokes, it's coming right here out of the top of the graphics card. Get some marshmallows out. Good boy, Jimmy. You're a good boy. Yeah, you're a good boy. Let's bring this camera down just a little bit. Good boys. Are you a good boy? Are you a good boy? Are you a good boy? Yeah. Yeah. There you go, Jimmy. Done with you now. Go away. I'll let you know when it's time for dinner. There we go. There's our final Heaven benchmark numbers here on this x299 system. And you can use that to compare against your own system. The Heaven benchmark is completely free, and you can run this benchmark exactly as I have done here to see how you compare against this system, if you want to. And let's run Prime 95 on here for 15 minutes, and let's see how well that does. Let's see where we're at right now on our temperatures. Screen's too small for me to read it. Our max temps on the CPU, only 52 degrees centigrade is the max we've hit so far. All right, let's go ahead and run Prime 95. And let's watch these temps. Whew, they shot up quick. Shot up real quick. What's it running at? It's only running at 4 gig. Oh, well, it's 3.5, right? I thought it said it was 3.5. It's running at 4? Does it turbo to 4? I'm confused. 77's a bit warm. Let's get the stopwatch going. We'll see if we can make it 15 minutes. That's a little disconcerting for it to hit almost 80 that quickly. You know, I have found these Scythe Mugen coolers to be so good, but maybe I found a chip it doesn't do a good job on. I know my thermal application is good. I know it's properly installed. The graphics card is already slowed down to the point where this fan is off. Now that fan just turned off, so the graphics card's nice and relaxed now. And we're already hitting 80 degrees centigrade, and we're only a minute into the test. Not a good start, ladies and gentlemen. Might be changing that cooler before too long. We'll see. Luke Greenia says, Carey, I just made a $20 contribution via PayPal. Get some waffles for that maple syrup, and thank you for all you do. Yeah, Luke, that's right. Luke sent me some maple syrup from Vermont, which I can't wait to try. Yeah, this CPU is getting hot. I'm going to let it run a little bit longer, but I got a feeling I'm going to change that cooler out. Where's that stuff? Here it is. Oh yeah, can't wait to dig into that. I do have a waffle maker. I should break that out and make some waffles. Get some buttermilk, some flour, baking soda, baking powder. Yeah. Now you guys are gonna get me hungry. Timer has been going for a little over 2.5 minutes, and we are hitting some pretty high temps here. It is only one core that's running that hot. It's core 4. The other cores seem all right. And our current temps on the cores are down in the 70s, even 69 on core number 1 currently. If you look over on the left side here of the temperatures, these are our current temps. These are the lowest temps measured since we've started this application. And then this is the maximum temp measured. So it's still running a solid 4 gigahertz, which I don't understand why it's running that fast. I'm guessing it turbos to 4, but that's a big turbo to go from 3.5 to 4. No wonder it would get hot. Maybe the BIOS is self-controlling that to keep the temps down. What is my opinion on Publix fried chicken tenders? I wouldn't know. They don't have Publix stores in Arizona. That's something on the East Coast, maybe like Florida. RC Pilot says, you'll never go back to that fake syrup again. I don't use fake syrup. I usually go to Costco. Corey Fruitman, the owner of Instant House Call, came out for a visit and brought me some Canadian maple syrup, not as big of a jar. And you can see we've been working our way through that one. It's the real deal. So that one is in the fridge. So when that one gets run out, we'll open up the next one. How we got from x299 to maple syrup, I'm not exactly sure, but it doesn't bother me one bit. We're going about nearing 5 minutes on the test, and temps are pretty locked in solid right now. And if they stay this way, I will not change that cooler because it's going to allow for all the RAM to be used with no interference. It's quiet. And if desperate measures if desperate times call for desperate jobs, I guess what I'm saying is I can add another fan to the other side if I was desperate enough to do it. And that would also improve the cooling to have a push-pull configuration. I've never done that on a Mugen 5 because I've never needed to. And from the looks of things, I still may not need to, but we'll just keep an eye on it. So my thanks over to John Yasuda, who's contributed the system to the channel. As I mentioned, he does not want the system back. And so I'm just taking liberties to make it the way I want it, which is removing the original power supply and all-in-one cooler he had, replacing the rear fan. And I will get an NVMe drive in there after I get a hold of Asus and get them to send me the little standoff and screw for the M2 drive that should have been installed on the motherboard. That's the way Gigabyte does it. And I think I'll tell Asus that just to sort of rub salt in the wound. Or maybe I won't, because I want them to be nice to me. Never complain to a chef before your food is served. That's all I'm saying. Oh, let's see if I'm missing anything exciting in the chat room here. Temps are really locked in there. It's like it escalated pretty quick and then it's sort of ramped itself down, but our core speed is really maintaining. It doesn't seem to be throttling at all from what I can tell. I see what happened here. It actually jumped up quite a bit when it got really hot. And so it's come down a little bit and it's keeping those temps down. I'll take that any day. 4 gigahertz is nothing to sneeze at. That's very respectable. 4.2, 4.3. That's a little excessive and probably nothing anybody would notice in a real world going from, you know, if you only, I'm sorry, it's not 4.2 or 4.3, is it? It's only 4056. So it's an even much more minor turbo. So you're not going to see 56 megahertz out of 4000. It's not humanly possible for you to see that. But more importantly, keeping those temps there down below 85 during this extreme torture test is critical. So we're about 8 minutes in, a little more than 8 minutes in, and it's performing admirably. So we got off to a rocky start there, but it looks like it's settled down. Okay. All right, just a few more minutes on this test, and then provided it's continuing as it has been, I'll be able to shut everything down, take the graphics card out, mount the motherboard into the case, then put the graphics card back in, secure it into the case, and then I just cable everything up, and it'll be ready to be put to work for something I don't know. It'll probably just sit on the floor of my office for a little while until I figure it out. What kind of wattage are we drawing from the wall on this? I don't know because I plugged it in the other side where I don't have my meter, so I have no idea. But clearly, 600 watts is way more than it needs. It probably only draws 400 watts maximum, would be my guess. I could be wrong, but that's my guess. I think we've got an extra 200 watts more than we need. But, just in case, even if it's hitting 500 or 550, it'll just be momentary and the power supply can handle that without smoking it. So we're good. Ten minutes in, 5 minutes to go. So if anybody has any technical questions while we're waiting, feel free to ask in the chat room. If I don't answer, there's typically other people in the chat room that can provide answers to you as well. Do I think it'll be able to maintain those temps in the case? Yes. A lot of people, you know, I personally, and don't be offended by this, but I find the people who ask those questions are the ones with the least amount of experience. Typically, there's no difference at all between testing a motherboard outside or inside of the case greater than 3 degrees centigrade. It's usually the way it works, unless you have a profoundly terrible case or you've completely installed it wrong. If anything, the temps should improve once it's enclosed in the case, because right now it doesn't have any forced airflow moving in one direction. When the covers are on the case, it's going to push that airflow, which it doesn't have now. The air is stagnant around this. Nothing's moving the air other than the fan right here. And as a result of that, a lot of this area and the surrounding areas of the board get excessively hot because there's no proper airflow happening right now. When it's mounted in the case and the fans are hooked up, the fans are going to push the air. They're going to bring air in through the front, and they're going to bring it across the board and then out through the back, and it's never going to stop. It's a constant wave of air moving in a single direction from the lower front to the rear top of the case. So if anything, I expect it will run cooler in the case rather than hotter. Now, if we disconnected all the fans on the case, then we put this motherboard in there, it would probably run about a couple degrees hotter. And depending on the case design, could even overheat without proper airflow. Have I tried a thermal pad on a CPU? No. No, I don't need to. Thermal compound works perfectly fine. Why would I try and find something better than what's working? It doesn't make any sense to me. It costs more money. And, you know, I guess what you need to understand about cooling is it doesn't really have any impact on the system whatsoever, whether you want to use the cheapest thermal compound, the most expensive, you want to use a thermal pad. Whatever you want to use is fine. Just use something. The result isn't going to make any difference that's measurable by more than 2 or 3 degrees in general. Changing a thermal compound, and it seems like a silly waste of money to do something excessive. But if it's your preference and you're a hobbyist, go right for it. Again, corporate America isn't going to pay you for that. Nobody gives a rat's behind what the temps are. That's, again, something hobbyists get sort of really tied up and consumed with, and it's something that really doesn't matter. It's basically looking for a problem that doesn't exist. Now, if you're having a heat-related issue and you'd like to know what best way to solve it, I'd be happy to answer those questions. But throwing out random comments about different thermal compound application methods and pads, it's just pointless nonsense because you're not fixing anything. So, and again, it comes from a place of professionalism, not a place of hobbyist. I think those questions are best directed to other YouTube channels that, you know, play around. But ultimately, in the real world, as long as your CPU is operating within its engineering limitations of temperature environment, you know, if it's running under the throttle temp, if you're a good 8 degrees below the throttle temp, you don't have a problem. There's nothing there to fix. It's all fine. So where are we at now? We're about 14 and a half minutes in. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of people that just, like when I talk to a no paying customer, let me put it this way. No paying customer has ever asked me what the temperature of their computer was or how they can make it cooler. Never in my career of 27, 28 years in any business or in any residential has anybody ever asked me that question. I've had people say, hey, the computer smells funny. I think it might be overheating. There might be a heat issue. That's about the closest we've come to anybody having a heat-related complaint. This weird sort of, I guess it results from boredom. where you're just bored and you just think, gosh, I wonder what would happen if I changed my thermal compound to a thermal pad. It's not fixing anything. It's nothing anybody will pay you to do in the corporate world. And so for me, in my world, you know, and I do encourage your questions, but I think it's really important. You really have to grasp, I'm not a hobbyist. And if you want to get into this as a career, you won't be doing that. That's just not the kind of work you'll do. Apart from, look, you got a system that's crashing. You find out it's crashing because it's overheating. So you take the heatsink off, you clean it, you reapply literally any thermal compound that you have that the corporation provides to you, and you apply it, you put it back together, system's fixed, you move on to the next one, and you'll try and do about 4 to 10 a day in an 8-hour day. So you've got to move quick. There's a lot of work, and you got to better show up on time tomorrow because there'll be more work waiting for you, more than you can handle. And that's how you that's how you have a career and make a living. And it's very rewarding. But you don't just mess around with one computer for 4 days. They'll get you fired. It just won't keep you. You're too slow. Okay, we just crossed over 16 minutes, so I've let this run a bit longer than I expected to. And looks like what, 83 was the most we ever hit here? No, 82, it's still 82. So it kind of ramped up. It did max out at 4,072, so it is sort of bouncing around a little bit on the speed of those individual cores. Down here is what I'm looking at. We see 4072 on the max. When it's idling, it'll sit down at 1200. And then watch these temps. Watch how fast these temps drop with an air cooler when you stop the Prime 95 test. Stop. Watch it. And that's how fast the CPU will heat up. And a liquid cooler will take quite a bit longer to cool down. Liquid takes longer to cool down. It's kind of a downside of a liquid cooler. But there you have it. It's quiet the whole time. The fans never got loud, and it never overheated. I'm very comfortable with the Mugen 5 on the x299-A. I'll go ahead and shut this down and start unplugging things so I can get it installed in the case. I'm very happy with these results. RC Pilots contributed $10. He says, I noticed you're not drinking any Coke. You must have run dry, so have a Coke on me. No, back in the back, there's 2 empty bottles. I'm trying to limit myself to 2 bottles a day. I've already had them. Might have to switch over to some Canada Dry or something. It's probably not any better for me, but it makes me feel like I'm doing something healthier. Do I have a Canada Dry? I'll take a little, how about a little Canada Dry? I have a little one. So I'm talking about Canadian maple syrup. Refreshing. Okay, so I'm done with this. Let me hit the switch on the power supply. I want to see all these lights go off before I mess with anything because there's still voltage going through there. I can go ahead and start disconnecting all the cables. Ethernet cable. We're going to unplug all the power cables. We'll pull the graphics card out of here, which should be a little bit of a trick given that its switch is way back in there. Come on. Thank you. We'll set that down over here. Unplug that. CPU power. Unplug. Motherboard power. Unplug the SATA cable. And we'll unplug the SSD. We'll set that over there as well. Unplug the power supply. You do not want to work on a computer that's plugged in unless you don't respect electricity. And that's a game you will lose in time. So I wish you the best of luck if you continue to work on a machine plugged into the wall with some complete misunderstanding of engineering, of electrical engineering, thinking that you're grounded. Oh, you're grounded, all right. You're grounded right to the earth. And that will kill you, or could kill you rather, since it's giving an endpoint to the electricity to go to indefinitely. It'll just flow through you. Your muscles will contract. You will not be able to let go, and somebody will find you dead. But hey, don't listen to me. What do I know? Better off listen to the hobbyists and enthusiasts out there that'll tell you to plug it into a ground outlet. And maybe after somebody dies, they'll stop saying that. There's no reason you should get any sort of electrocution from these devices, but some people do things with some hardware that's old, outdated, or they fixed it themselves. They got out their soldering iron. Power supplies, you should not be opening them and even changing a fan. It's extraordinarily foolish and dangerous to do that. Unless you have a degree in electrical engineering, I don't advise it. Don't listen to me. Doesn't matter to me. You can get away with it or not. You can get severely hurt. It has no impact on me whatsoever. But I would advise you to behave as a professional would, and no professional would do that. Okay, let's get the board in here. We're putting the same board back in that was in here. So all the standoffs should be in the right place. These were the screws, I think, that were holding the board in place, and we'll just put those right back in. Well, this computer case is a bit bulky and expensive for me to ship it. It is nice to work on because it's very roomy inside. So there's lots of ease of access to things like the mounting screws or even that CPU power connector that I struggled with yesterday. It'll be no problem on this case. Using the same cooler, by the way, which was really getting in my way yesterday. But that is how important the role the case plays in your build. It can make a simple build difficult, or a difficult build simple. Choose wisely. Guess I don't need that anymore. Gerard Boone has contributed £5. He says, "Good evening, Carey, and greetings all from London." Well, thank you for the contribution, Gerard. Let's see. I should zip tie this now. That's what I should do. So to do this, because this heatsink is so large, it's going to be difficult for me to really get in here and, well, maybe not. Let's see. Yeah, it's a little difficult. Well, let's try it out. I was going to say I might just take the fan out, then wire tie these or zip tie these wires and then put the fan back in. I'm trying to be lazy. I mean, I'm trying to be efficient. Yeah, that's what I meant. Boy, it's nice to have the space up here to get your hands in there. That is nice. Let's see if we can get that tucked away, hidden back there. Nope, not gonna do it. Or is it? It is. Gotcha. All right, I'm happy with that. Okay, let's see if I can get this 8-pin CPU power cable on. There it goes. Look how easy that was. We'll get the motherboard power. Easy. All right, let's go see. I think UPS just dropped off some more computer parts for next week's build, if I suspect correctly. Yep. Oh, it's windy out here. We got something in a big box that weighs nothing. It's like an empty box. I gotta go see what this is. Let's see. Where's my knife? Are you gonna check that out for me, Lyle? Oh, that's the air filter for my car. That's why it's so light. That explains that. That's not from Newegg. These are from Amazon. Yep. Cabin air filter and engine air filter for the Mustang. Very good. Good, good, good. More work for later. All right, where was I? Let's get USB plugged in here, I guess. So we'll run this, let's see. Is there USB 3? Yeah, there's USB 3 right there. That's a fun cable to put on because you need to have a lot of slack on it. So we have got that cable sort of looped around right there because of the the connector's so large. You don't want to break the socket or plug that it plugs into. Yeah, the socket it plugs into. Let's see. We can run some cables down here. Should I go in with these? Come in right here, I guess. Okay, hard drive LED. Power LED. go. Reset switch, that goes right next to the hard drive LED. And the power switch goes right above the reset switch. There we go. Perfect. Okay. And front port audio, right? Got to get that hooked up. Oh, we got a couple of couple front fans. What do I want to do with these front fans? Let me see on here. We have a fan header right there. And I'll worry about this cable management a little later. Just plug them in right up here. So that's all three case fans. Rear fan, the two front ones, that's already done. And then front port audio. Oh, wait a minute. There's also what, USB 2.0 on here too. So let's get the USB plugged in. I think that's going to come in, yeah, right there. And we'll just plug it in right here. And then the other one should be front port audio. And we'll run that one in right as far back as we can get it. Right there. And it should plug in right there. There you go. Push the slack out. Let's see, I'm gonna need a SATA cable pushed out through here for the hard drive that we're using and the optical drive, so we'll run that out. I guess I'm gonna need one of each, aren't I? Pushing the whole grommet out. We can run that right up here and into the back of the optical drive, which I'm not going to hook up right now, but I'll go ahead and run the power to it. And then it's Molex, I won't use that. That's another SATA. And this will be for our graphics card. So the graphics card one we can run out right now. There it goes. And then we will bring that in. Let's see. I guess we could bring it in right through. Where? You want to go above that or behind it? Going right there. There we go. Yeah, it looks good. And then I will grab the SATA cable for the solid state drive. I'm not going to install this because I don't plan on keeping it in there. This is just for our testing purposes. So we'll just set that in there for now. And we'll go ahead and give it a little power. And we'll just set it down in anywhere, really. Doesn't matter. And this is Molex. We're not using Molex. And I can grab a zip tie. Get that tied up down here. Out of sight, out of mind. Solid state drives can fall down. There's nothing to break. You wouldn't want that to happen to a mechanical hard drive. But a solid state drive, you can throw it across the room. It'll be fine. Chances are, anyway. There we go. say that's in. Wonder how much longer I'm going to get on this battery. I've been doing pretty good. Going on about 2 months, I think. That's good. And let's give our graphics card some power. That's it. It's all done. That's all I can do for today anyway. I'll get another SATA cable. We'll run that to the optical drive. But I'll do that later when I get the M2 standoffs and screw for the NVMe drive to install. But that gets all the hard work out of the way. We'll test fire it, make sure we didn't break it in the process. So I'm going to move the plug to the other side. I'm also kind of curious what the power drain is on this. I don't think it's as bad as you guys think it is. It never is. Everybody overestimates how hot everything runs. Everybody overestimates how much power everything uses. That's the internet, man. That's the internet. Very little to do with reality. All right. So let's get that in the trash and let's get this up and running. Power supply's in the off position, which is good. We'll flip that back on. I'll plug it back into the network. I don't know why it fired up. Shouldn't have done that. That's weird. I guess it just spun up and spun down. Another good reason to keep that switch on the power supply off until you're ready to turn it on. Sort of breaking my own rule there. Okay, here we go. Power button. Oh, the power button doesn't work. I think I've got the, when I took this apart and fixed the, and cleaned it, I think I will have installed this piece wrong because it's not budging. But power light did come on. I think there's just an issue with the way the front panel is hitting the switch behind it. Guess I better keep it a keyboard and mouse, huh? There we go. No keyboard detected. Press F1. If there's no keyboard detected, how am I supposed to press F1? I want to meet that genius. I guess what they're saying is plug in a keyboard and then press F1. I think that's what they mean to say. Let's turn XMP on. Profile 1. Good, good. Save and exit. All right, I think I'm missing something. Oh, I'm watching a delayed feed. Probably should put it on the live feed. There it is. There it is. All right. Everything is working and working quietly. The system's much more simplified than the way it was originally built. I prefer simple. Simple tends to be more reliable and much easier to work on. Whether you need to repair it or upgrade it, It's just easier all the way around. And like I said, my goal will be to get an M2 drive in there, which means I'll have to pull the graphics card out to get back under that heatsink again. I'll run a SATA cable to the optical drive. And it looks like I put the rear fan on backwards. I have to flip this fan over the other direction. I just realized it's blowing air into the case instead of blowing air out. I guess I wasn't paying too much attention when I did that. So I will correct that. So these fans are mounted correctly. They're blowing air in, and that one should be blowing air out. I need to flip that the other way. Minor little thing. That will definitely impact our ability to cool. Because all the air is moving this way until it hits that fan and it's pushing it back. That's not good at all. But you know, until we push the system hard, it doesn't become an issue. Because right now it's cooled fine, because it's just idling. But make sure your fans are in the right direction. Yeah. You know what I was thinking when I did that. I also put it on upside down. I know I put it on upside down because I wanted the cable coming out of that side. But it should have been coming out of the side top. Instead, I've got it coming out of the side bottom. So I don't know. I was pretty busy and not thinking straight. That's my excuse. That's what I'm going to go with. You start getting pushed, and that's what separates the men from the boys. Because I'll tell you what, in a business environment and the stress hits, you're going to make mistakes. It's going to happen because you're trying to move through things too quickly. And if you're not making mistakes, you're probably not working hard enough. You got too much time on your hands. But that being said, that's a minor little thing, and I will correct it. Okay, so if anybody has any last questions, otherwise we'll wrap it up for today. The parts involved here are, I will go back through this this video and I'll list out the motherboard, the case. I think that's a Corsair 750D. I've got an EVGA 600 watt, pretty inexpensive 80 plus watt power supply. That's giving us our power. I've got an ADATA SU650, which I think is 500 gigs. Can't read it. What size is this drive? Oh, this is a terabyte. This is 960. 32 gigs of G-Skill Trident RAM, the Mugen 5 cooler, the Asus x299-A Prime, an Asus DVD reader writer. What did I say the CPU was? A 7800, something like that. That's it. It's working. I don't know for how long. Like I say, these X99 and X299 systems are not renowned for reliability. They're known to be fast, performance-driven, much like a Ferrari, not the car you want to rely on in an emergency. Flytech Bass has contributed $2. He says, "Where is the Lazy Susan?" The case is so big, it hangs over the edge of the Lazy Susan, so I cannot use the Lazy Susan on this case. Jeff Norris wants to know what we do for CPU benches and cooling tests. We already did that. You can rewind this video to watch that. It's already been done. Does the Dell Optiplex only run in Legacy? There's about 7,000 models, I'm exaggerating, of Dell Optiplex. There's not a such thing as a Dell Optiplex. Optiplex is a series of dozens, if not hundreds of different models of machines from Dell. So depending on the specific model and build that you have, you would have to contact Dell for that answer. Jeremy Kramer's contributed $10. He says, "Here's for another case of Coke. Keep up the fantastic work. And in your view, would there be any reason to use a mechanical hard drive?" Yes, storage space. If you're somebody who needs space, you want a mechanical drive. But most people want performance. They want speed. And if you want speed, you got to go to solid state. You cannot have both, not yet. Solid state drives will leapfrog over capacities of hard drives. because they always double. You'll see solid state drives go from 64 to 128 to 256 to 512 to 1024, 2000, 2 terabyte, and then 4 terabyte, and then it'll be 8, 16, 32, 64, 128 terabytes, 256 terabyte. It just keeps going. 512 terabyte, 1024 terabyte. We start getting into petabytes. So the technology will. What's going to happen is, storage over 4 terabytes. You really want to look at mechanical storage, but in the years coming soon, solid state drives will leapfrog right over hard drive storage, and it won't seem so massive anymore. And they'll do it overnight. It'll just double. SSD will just keep doubling, and suddenly hard drives will no longer even be a consideration. For most people, most home users and most workstations in business, we've already long left hard drives behind years ago. It's improved the reliability and performance. It means greater productivity for everybody, including the IT staff and the employees using the workstations. They become very affordable. And I've never seen a failed solid state drive in the field. Nobody's ever brought me one for repair that had a failed solid state drive, which isn't to say solid state drives don't fail. It's to say I have yet to have a customer call me where the problem was a failed solid state drive. And no solid state drive I've ever installed has ever failed. So I'm not just installing any solid state drives. I'm very picky over the manufacturers that I choose, how I install them, and all of that plays factors in the reliability and results experience with the drive. So that being said, I'll certainly let you know, because I'm curious myself the first time I get a system in with a dead solid state drive, especially if it's one I've installed. I started installing them in 2013, and the ones I installed in 2013 still work today. We have since replaced them because I think those were 64 or 128 gigs, and they're not big enough anymore. And I won't even install anything less than 240 gigs in the giveaway computers. Those are $30 all day long. You can buy a Crucial 240 gig, 2.5-inch solid state drive. On sale, they should be $30. I think I saw them for $28.99 at Newegg last week. So 240 is about the lowest I'll go now. And it's so inexpensive. It costs me more than that to eat dinner. If I take my wife out to dinner, it's more than $30. And it doesn't last 6 years. I wish dinner would last 6 years. And when I say last 6 years, I'm saying the first solid state drive I installed was 6 years ago, and they've never failed. I've not seen one fail yet in the field. So people can tell me I've had one fail. Okay, well, I don't know what brand you choose or how you installed it or how you abused it, or maybe you didn't, I don't know. But no one's ever brought one to my shop, and no customer's ever called with a failed solid state drive. But when it happens, I'll let you know, because I'd certainly be curious when the first one's going to take. It's got to be a first one sooner or later. Nothing lasts forever. But oftentimes we are replacing these drives long before they reach their failure points, because they just get the capacities, they just keep getting larger and larger and cheaper, faster. So why would you stick with a small, slow SSD when for as little as $30 you could go from 128 to 240, increase your speed, have a new warranty again? For $30? Come on. Has the dentist found any caries lately? What? Is it a good idea to have a solid state as the OS and the hard drive is external? Only if you want 2 drives that can fail. The more drives you have, the more drives you can have to fail. You can do whatever you want to do. If you want a hard drive as storage, go right ahead. The hard drive will be statistically the first one to fail. If it was me, I don't use hard drives anymore. I simply do not use them, except in my network attached storage. I've got 2 12 terabyte drives in a RAID 1 configuration and a Synology NAS. Other than that, I just don't use hard drives. You'd have to have a massive need of storage. And if you are, you're going to need at least 2 of them, because one will fail. If you can afford a larger solid state drive, in my workstation in the office, I just upgraded to a 2 terabyte Intel 660p NVMe drive, which does about 2,000 megabytes per second on the reads and the writes both, which is a great improvement over the 550 megabytes per second I was getting out of a standard SATA SSD. And I don't come anywhere near using 2 terabytes of storage with it. So, and again, I've never seen one fail. Hard drives, I've got hard drives coming out of my ears. I've got 4 of them stacked up on the floor that are bad just from sitting because they haven't been used. When I had erased them, they were fine, and when I went to check them, now they've failed. That's a mechanical drive. It's just how mechanical drives are. And you pay that price, or you take that risk in order to get that great amount of storage at such cheap cost. And that's why it's important you have at least 2 of them. But there's no right or wrong answer here. If you want to slow your whole system down, put a hard drive in. How you justify that makes no difference in my world. But the mechanical drive slows your whole computer down if it's running off SSD. And it's funny to me because I hear all these people worried about their temperatures, and I hear people talking about overclocking, and then they talk about putting a hard drive in, which is just the exact opposite of performance. There's no sense delidding or overclocking if you're running a mechanical hard drive. You're just a hobbyist who doesn't really understand how the electronics work. You'd be far better off running a CPU that's 4 years old with a solid state drive than running the fastest CPU you could have today, delidding it, lapping it, changing the thermal compound under the heat spreader, getting the expensive thermal compound and putting it all in one cooler and overclocking it. You still won't run anywhere near as fast if you're running it with a mechanical drive as to somebody who's got a 4-year-old system and they only have an SSD and they don't overclock and they didn't delid it and they didn't change the thermal compound. They'll smoke you all day long. So, be that as it may, the internet is the internet and people want to believe what they want to believe. So, welcome to my world. People who value what I do keep me in business, and the people who think they know better, whether they realize it or not, they keep me in business too. So I'm good with it either way. You'll see a few builds on here where customers have asked for large storage hard drives. And I always recommend the customer not do that. And the customer will often say, well, what choice do I have? And I'm saying, well, go with external storage, find another way. But if the customer wants an 8 terabyte hard drive installed, I'll put it in. It's not my call. I just advise them that it's an outdated technology. It's very unreliable. It's very slow. But the argument is it's inexpensive, and that's why they want it. I understand. It's inexpensive. So you're going to take your most precious data and put it on the most inexpensive thing. It'd be like going to buy a life raft and saying, what's the cheapest life raft you have? Do you really want to risk your life with the cheapest product possible? There's some things in life, in my opinion, it's worth spending a few extra bucks and say, what's the best life raft you have? I mean, if you're in the middle of the ocean and you need a life raft, do you want to rely on the cheapest one? I don't. That's all I'm saying. Don't care what you want. If I have a choice, I'm getting the best one money can buy. And I hope to God I never have to use it. There's a lot of criticism of hobbyists today. It's really not criticism, and it's interesting that that's what you hear. What it is I'm trying to make you aware of the difference. There seems to be some sort of denial that hobbyists and professionals are identical. They're not. They're not even close to being the same. That's all I'm trying to tell you. It's all the information I'm trying to convey. You're getting your mind poisoned with false information by hobbyists that is not followed in the industry, where people that work in career IT would never follow those procedures. So you've got a really unique opportunity here as a window into a professional career IT person that is warning you that the information that you are obtaining from these other YouTube channels that are hobbyists and enthusiasts are not exercises practiced in the corporate world. And if you want to be a professional and you want to act in a professional manner and you want to do professional level work for other people, where you're held accountable, liable, and responsible for the work that you do, you're not going to get too far following these hobbyist channels. You will find yourself getting in a lot of trouble. You'll find yourself upsetting a lot of customers who have come to expect from other professionals They're not watching YouTube channels expecting you to do some of the silly stuff I see them do. And when you pull that stunt, and when you take too long, and when you think you're worth a lot of money, you're going to end up going out of business. That's a lot of these computer repair businesses are started by hobbyists, and most of them don't last 2 to 3 years, tops. So, you got a guy who's been in the field 28 years professionally. If you don't want to listen to me, don't. But I think it's a pretty unique offering on YouTube that I'm doing it, and I think it's a gift that I give to the community to share my experience and my misconceptions, because when I got started, I was really blindsided by the operations and procedures and protocols of corporate America. And at first, it didn't make any sense to me. I thought it was all stupid. But it took a little time, and I realized what was at stake. And once you have accepted accountability for what's about to happen from your actions, that affects the employees, it affects the company, and it affects the company's customers, things get real serious, and there's no playing around. RGB lighting and liquid coolers, there's no time for that. There's no time for that silly nonsense. What we're trying to do is make a profit. We're trying to help as many customers as possible. We're trying to make the company as efficient as possible. And when you work in that field, you will probably be very stressed out. There's so much work that needs to be done. Companies don't hire 12 people when they have a job that 10 people can do. Generally, they hire 4 people for a job that takes 8 to 10 people to do. And you'll be one of those 4 people, and you will be overworked. You will feel underpaid and underappreciated. And the last thing you're going to want to do when you come home is, not right away, but after a couple of years of this, you're going to be like, man, I'm not going to waste my time putting a liquid cooler in or trying to overclock. That's just stupid. Because when you realize what really matters is getting work done, when you realize what really matters is, your skill in the game is far more powerful than any overclock. You're not a better gamer because you have a better computer. You're simply not. You're not a better chef because you have a nicer set of pots and pans. You're not a better photographer because you have a nicer camera. You're not a better driver because you have a nicer car. It's simply not the way it works. If you can't parallel park, it doesn't matter what you drive. It's not going to make you, there's cars that parallel park themselves, but that's not you. That's not you doing it. So what I'm saying is a lot of people, they sort of, especially in the hobbyist arena, what they're doing is they're putting a lot of emphasis on bling. They're putting emphasis on numbers and benchmarks, but they're not actually getting anything done. And they're not relying on that computer to take care of customers. And when you're a customer, and it will happen to you, you'll be in a store or a market or something, and their computers will be down, and they will not be able to help you. How do you feel when it happens to you? How do you feel when you just want to buy something and leave? Do you ever say, I'm never coming here again? Like, I can't believe you just wasted my time. I came in here to get something and your system's down. This costs the company lots of money, and you may just rag on that company to all your friends, and you wouldn't believe their system was down. They wouldn't sell me what I needed, and I had to drive across town to get it somewhere else. When it affects you as a customer, then you start then to understand the pressures that's put on the IT staff and how much weight is on their shoulder to get things done quickly, get it done right the first time. And the reason the IT staff hadn't gotten to it yet is because they're so busy helping you're always putting out fires. You're just like a fireman, constantly going from one fire to the next. Hobbyists don't do that. So that's all I'm saying. It's not putting them down. It's saying you really should pay attention to the source of the information, because there's just not many people who work in the field who are sharing this information with you guys. And I'm afraid some of you are going to get into the IT world as techs and realize it is not at all like you thought it was going to be. But I think if you're properly prepared for your expectations and you're okay with that and you enter the field, you'll be very well rewarded and have a great career. RC Pilot says, fighter pilots will tell you it's not the plane, it's the pilot. Exactly, exactly. Nick Poverman says, I can't wait for RGB to die. Yeah, Yeah, it doesn't make anybody more productive. It doesn't make you more intelligent. It doesn't make you better at your game. It's just there to impress people. People that, and many times, if you met them, there might be people you wouldn't be friends with, that you wouldn't get along with, but it's very important that you impress them. I don't know. I don't get it. I really don't. It's sort of like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example of, it's sort of like parsley. You eat at a nice restaurant and they bring you out a really nice plate. You know, the food is just almost like art on that plate. And then they add the parsley. And the parsley is more or less flavorless. It doesn't really bring anything to the meal. It's just there aesthetically to make it look pleasing. I don't care what it looks like. I care what it tastes like, you know? That's the important thing. All you have to do is be a connoisseur of cheese to understand what I'm trying to tell you. A lot of people are like, man, the more pungent and stinky the cheese is, the better it is. So you can dress it up all day long with parsley. It doesn't make it taste better. It just is there to make it look better. Well, who cares? Who cares what it looks like? So anyway, that's what that is. So RGB is great for hobbyists, somebody who's bored, they've got money burning a hole in their pocket. Corporations love it because they get to charge you for stuff that doesn't matter. It's easy to make a profit on stuff like that. They're charging you guys, the people who buy into the RGB and literally buy into it, you're getting bilked by the manufacturers. It costs them pennies to make this stuff and they charge top dollar for it. So as far as corporate America is concerned, those that make gaming stuff, they very much want you to continue to see value in RGB so that you will continue to pay top dollar for something that has absolutely no impact on the performance or reliability or your ability as far as that's concerned. But they like that very much. In such a tight industry, the profit margins in computer hardware is very, very slim. So any way a manufacturer can find a way to charge a premium, and especially for something that has very little warranty like RGB, like what's going to go wrong? It's an LED. It's a light emitting diode. What's going to happen to it? It'll last for 100 years, you know? So it's a very easy and expensive item for them that they can mark up 500-600% or even 1,000% over the cost of manufacturing and then convince people that they should pay that money for something that doesn't matter. So those of us that are very logical and care about, you know, what makes sense, we would rather put our money into more storage, or faster storage, you know, NVMe drive, a larger NVMe drive, a faster CPU, a quieter heatsink, you know, a quieter fan, a more powerful graphics card, you know, something that actually matters in our usage of the machine. All that money people spend for RGB lighting could, I promise you, could have been put into better hardware that actually matters, a better CPU, a better motherboard, better sound card, better headphones, a better keyboard, better mouse, a larger monitor. So I think it's a real shame to see people work so hard to spend money on something that doesn't matter so their machine can look fast. I don't care if a machine looks fast. I want the machine to be fast. Where do you get your Acronis from? I get it from Acronis. I also recommend you can buy it from Amazon. If you belong to a computer club, you can often get it pretty inexpensively from your computer club. We will run a special on Acronis in June, if you want to hold off. I'm talking with Acronis now about throwing another special. Well, I don't want to do it too often. It's got to be on occasion. And we did it when we do it last month, the month before. So we'll do it like 4 times a year. We'll run a special with Acronis. So if you hang in there and wait, there'll be a special next month right here on this channel. Otherwise, just go to Amazon. Make sure you get the latest 2019 version of Acronis if you buy it new. Carey, a lot of parts just come with RGB with no choice. Name one. Name one part where I don't have a choice. I guarantee you can find a motherboard that doesn't have RGB. You can find a case that doesn't have RGB. You can find RAM that's not RGB. You have choice. But again, the manufacturers want you to believe that. The manufacturers want to say, well, if you want the fastest RAM, we're putting RGB on it so we can make more money on it. But that's not necessarily the fastest RAM in reality. And even if it were, the chances of it making any noticeable difference going from, say, 2666 speed to 3000, you're not going to notice it at all. Maybe on a benchmark, but no human being can notice it. You still have analog eyes, you still have analog ears. You're not a robot, you're not a digital machine. And so therefore, it is incapable. You are the slowest point of a modern computer. And money that you're spending on blinky nonsense is, I don't know. There's some people that are really into jewelry too. You don't see me wear jewelry. What does it do for me? Try to impress people? Look at how nice my necklace is? Or, you know, I have jewelry. I have rings. I have an earring, a stud. I have watches. I'm just over it now. Just over it. What do I need a watch for? There's clocks everywhere. There's a clock in my car. There's a clock on the phone. There's clocks on the walls everywhere you go. Not only that, when you're listening to the radio in the car, they tell you what time it is all the time. I don't need to wear a watch. It's weird why people still wear them. But you can spend $30,000 on a Rolex. If you see value in that, go for it. Still won't change the time, and it won't get you anywhere on time faster. But if you got that kind of money to burn, I'm jealous, because that's not how I would spend it. We needed a mini ITX board with the trusted platform module, and the only one we could find had RGB. Well, there's a difference between the only one you could find and what's available. Yeah, so I'll tell you what's fun for me. What's fun for me is that somebody sends me a computer, and I get this all the time. They go, nobody can fix this. Like, I'm at my wit's end. And I look at it and go, you know, here you go. And they're just dumbfounded. I mean, they're like, this couldn't be fixed. I'm like, no, you're just taking it to hobbyists. That's the problem. This stuff is all very simple to fix. But because what I do is, there's no degree to be a computer technician. You can have a degree in computer information systems or IT, but there's no degree as a computer technician. It's a self-proclaimed position, and it's very challenging at times when customers have been burned by so many self-proclaimed techs that they just don't believe that you're any different. And it's just a wonderful feeling to see that customer's face light up when they are absolutely convinced by these hobbyists and techs, these hobbyist techs, that this problem cannot be resolved. And they've spent weeks or months struggling with it. And they just go, you know, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. And I'm like, here you go. That's all it was? That's all it was. Well, how come these other people couldn't do it? I don't know. There's no regulation in the industry. So then people say, oh, well, I'm going to come back to you, you know. But until they have that experience, they don't know me from anybody else. And it can be a very frustrating obstacle to overcome to get somebody to trust you, especially when they've been burned many times in the past. It is a challenge in the business because of the ease of entry into just doing it. Anybody can say they're a computer technician in the United States, and there's nothing illegal about it. You are as qualified, no matter your age, to be a computer tech as I am. It is self-proclaimed. All you have to do is say I'm a computer tech, and now you are legally as qualified as me. So it's up to the customer, to make a wise choice, and most customers just go with what's easiest. Who's the closest? What's the first number that comes up on Google? And these customers get burned big time, more often than not. And sometimes it leads them to me eventually. And by then they are so spent and exhausted and absolutely convinced that what they've been told, that it's fun to go, well, that's all it was. You just have to do that. And they're dumbfounded. Well, if it was that easy, how come all those other people couldn't do it? I can't. I'm a computer technician. I'm not a psychologist. I don't know why. But that's really priceless. That's not my mouse. I need this one over here. Who is to be blamed for a leaking liquid cooling system? Well, that's a difficult question to answer. If it's an all-in-one liquid cooler and it was improperly installed, then the technician is to blame. If it's an all-in-one cooler that was installed properly, then it's the manufacturer who is to blame. If it's an all-in-one cooler that you purchased from a questionable source, then you are to blame. If you built your own custom cooling loop and you got a defective part, then it would be the manufacturer of that piece of the cooling system that is to blame. But if you didn't assemble it correctly because you don't know what you're doing, then you're to blame. So it just depends on all of the variables involved. There's no one sort of blanket answer. And you wouldn't want to live in a world like that, would you? Because would you want somebody to judge you based on your height or your color or your race or your gender? Or do you want them to judge you on who you are? And in the like manner, when hardware fails, it can fail for any number of reasons, whether it's installed incorrectly, used improperly, manufactured improperly, shipped or distributed or stored improperly. A lot of people do things to save money, and it ends up costing them a lot of money. A lot of times when I'm in a hurry, it takes me longer to get something done. So sometimes these things we do and the way we justify it ends up only hurting ourselves. I always say, do it right. Get it done right. Buy from a legitimate source. Make sure it gets installed correctly. Use it appropriately. And it should last you for years and years and years and years and years. Although liquid coolers in general, they'll have pumps die within 3 to 5 years. That's just normal, and just to expect to replace it after that time. Am I excited about Computex? No, I've never been excited about it. Doesn't that take place in Taiwan or something? Yeah, no thanks. It's all the same stuff. It's, oh boy, a faster video card, a new CPU, smaller technology, 7 nanometer tech. Oh boy. After 28 years of this, it's really just the same thing over and over. It's a wheel going around in circles. It's hard to get excited for it. Show me something new. Show me something different. Don't show me an improvement on what we've got. I want something completely out of the box. Carey, I bought a Mugen 5 cooler for my AMD PC and it dropped my temps over 10 degrees. Yeah, it's a good cooler. And it's quiet as a mouse and super easy to install. Oh, did I miss some contributions? I may have. Let's take a look. Give some shouts out to everybody who's been kind enough and generous enough to contribute during today's broadcast. Peter Dalmassi's contributed €5. He says, I wish I wasn't so poor, but I love your honest IT knowledge. Greetings from Slovakia. Well, thank you, Peter. Donnie Seegers contributed $5. He says, I respect your knowledge and experience and appreciate you sharing it with us. Thanks, Donnie. Not everybody does, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. Jeremy has contributed, Jeremy Kramer contributed $10. Flytech Bass, $2. Gerard Boone, £5. RC Pilot, $10. Ben Fitzpatrick, $5. Dustin Fuller, $5. CCTV user and Ton Van Ballen has contributed €2 and £2. Thank you. Steve Devine, $2. And that catches us up since the stream had to restart with that issue I had earlier. Thank you guys very much. There's some talk of some regulation being passed with regards to allowing the phone companies carte blanche to ban phone numbers. This should significantly reduce the amount of spam calls we're getting. It appears I was incorrect when I said that the large phone companies don't want to put the money, the investment into blocking these spam calls. Apparently there was a concern that in doing that they could be sued. So now there's legislation being passed that frees up the liability from the phone carriers to encourage them to move forward with authentication techniques and banning entire blocks of numbers from ever entering their phone system, so that you and I don't get these spam calls. They've been going on. I get more spam calls these days than actual people trying to reach me that I know. And this is a problem which, if unabated, will continue to get worse and worse to a point where no one would just not going to use a phone anymore. So it's good to see the government moving towards correcting that. It's about 10 years late, but better late than never. And hopefully that legislation will pass. And these companies like AT&T, T-Mobile, Sprint, hopefully they'll be able to implement their technology soon. And they're not going to get rid of it entirely, but we could probably stop 90% of it with simple technology to identify the source of the call as being questionable and just not allowing it until it's verified. It will never cease to amaze me, no matter what I tell people about statistics, about hard drives statistically fail in 5 years. Liquid pumps on all-in-one coolers, or water pumps in general on coolers, generally last 3 to 5 years. Nobody hears the generally, nobody hears the statistics. They only talk about their own personal experience with the one unit they have, as though that's the normal for the entire industry. And they completely dismiss what I say because their personal experience with the one unit defies those statistics. But it doesn't defy the statistics. It falls right into those statistics. That's why the statistic is 3 to 5 years and not 1 to 2 years. And people don't seem to understand that. It does get a little frustrating when people just want to argue and they don't want to listen. I'm not here to tell you that these parts all fail. It's as if what I'm saying is, every cooler pump will die within 5 years. That's what they heard, but that is not what I said, and it is profoundly frustrating to me. There are hard drives out there that have been running 20 years. I've got a hard drive in my office that's probably close to 20 years old. Last time I plugged it in, it worked fine. It sounded horrible. Its capacity is small. It's very slow, and I don't have an ID interface to plug it into, but it probably still works. But that's not normal. That is not the statistic. So keep in mind what's being said. Listen to what is being said, because it's not about absolutes. I very rarely put any absolutes in statements, because everybody's environment is different. You might live in a colder climate and have unique issues to that. I live in a hot, dusty climate, and there are issues that come with that. And then, of course, there's how the part is handled, how it's installed, how it was manufactured, who was working that day. It's sort of like a restaurant review. You go to a restaurant, you write your experience on Yelp. You had terrible service, the terrible food, and you thought it was priced too high because it was terrible service and food. And yet somebody else goes to that restaurant on a different day where different employees are working, and perhaps it was another week where the whole different load of food came in. So the food they had last week is all gone. They ordered their food. They had impeccable service, delicious food, and thought it was priced very fairly for the service, the atmosphere, and the quality of the food. So a lot of times when you look at like a review, you want to average it out. When you read a 5-star review on Amazon, you wouldn't think, for example, that if I buy this, I'm going to have a 5-star experience. You want to hope you will. And you're looking at the average and you're saying, okay, here's a Yelp review that's averaging 3 out of 5 stars. What does that mean? Does that mean I'm going to have a good experience, or does that mean I'm going to have a bad experience? And if you look through the reviews, you'll see just as many 1 stars as 5 stars. And it's almost like having no information at all. You're like, well, this is a coin toss. I don't know how this is going to end. And so the only way you're going to know is by having that experience. And again, you can go back to that same restaurant, order that same food, and do that 3 times over the course of 2 months and have completely different experiences based on when the food was delivered, based on when you ordered, who was working that day as far as the service, as far as the cook. And it'll completely change. And that's why consistency is really important to me. But oftentimes, if the first one I get is bad, I have no reason to give them a second chance. But if it's really good, then I want to go back, and I have expectations that it'll be good again. And if it isn't, then I'm really depressed. I'm upset because I know what they're capable of, and they didn't, if it's not as good the second time. So what I love is consistency. I love to go back over and over and over again and get the same quality product with the same quality service. And one of my favorite pizza places is Grimaldi's, and I find that it's impeccable. It's exactly the same every time. Well, some people don't want the same every time, but when I want Grimaldi's, I know exactly what to expect for price, service, and food quality. And very rarely do they ever let me down. And so that's what I value, me personally. All right, guys, if you have any other questions about the industry I can clarify for you, I'm happy to do so. One of the best experiences, if you're truly curious about it, there's a few podcasts you can listen to where actual working techs share their experiences. One is me and Mike Smith, which is self-promotion, but Tech Vets, tech-vets.com. Our first show was back in 2009. Mike and I have been doing the show for over 10 years now. We're both self-employed, real working professional computer techs. Also, Podnuts, Podnutz. There's Podnuts Daily and Podnuts Pro. Listen from real working computer techs rather than YouTube enthusiasts. TechNibble is a great source, technibble.com. If you want to read about some of the frustrations and some of the obstacles that self-employed technicians run into. You can check out your local neighborhood computer guy, which is that the first letter of each of those. Your local neighborhood friendly community. That's Matthew Rodella, who was doing the computer marketing business, the computer business marketing podcast, I think is what it's called. And then there's, what else? I think Tech Force. I think he's kind of pod faded. Was it Tech Force? On Force? He had a really good podcast talking about some of the issues in business, but it was more done like an announcer, not like me, just sort of offhand. Like this is all, seems like it's scripted. He's got a very good professional voice, very well polished and edited. But the information very valuable just the same. Who am I forgetting? Got to be forgetting one. If you're interested, look at $300 data recovery with regards to, technicians specialize in different, being an IT tech, it doesn't mean you fix everything. It doesn't mean you fix the server, you fix the workstation, you recover data, you configure the network, you design the network, you replace switches, you approve user permissions, you remove deleted users, you handle the email, you put in the filters, the spam filters, the firewall restrictions. These are all different departments and all different specialties. You don't code the website or handle the marketing. This is all handled by individuals and specialists. Anybody who thinks that that they can do it all, that's a dangerous person. So if you're interested in data recovery, check out $300 data recovery here on YouTube. He's got some fascinating YouTube videos. Probably got about $500,000 worth of equipment that he uses. It's a huge investment in this equipment to do this job. And it doesn't really make sense for a home user to make this investment to recover a hard drive, because you could just spend $300 and let him do it. And each individual machine is probably $10,000 to $15,000. And then there's the experience to know how to use it. And his name is Brian Cometa. He's really, really good at what he does, and he's very open about sharing information. Then there's forensic data recovery. That's a whole nother level that requires, in some states, it requires a private investigator's license, which you have to go to school for and pass a test, and it has to be renewed every couple of years. And that's used in cases going to court where the legal law enforcement will pay a forensic data examiner to attempt to recover data for a suspect that is going to court, and then will testify in court as to their professional experience and opinion regarding what was recovered, what was attempted to be hidden, and it's all used against people in a court of law. It's very serious work. It's not the kind of work Brian Cometa does, but that's the kind of work Scott Moulton does over at My Hard Drive Died. I've been very fortunate in this industry to get to meet some amazing people with different specialties. And, I wouldn't attempt to do data recovery because there's a level of experience that's required that if you don't have it and it's your data, well, it's your loss. But if a customer's paying you to do it and you destroy that customer's ability to get that data back, I wouldn't want to be you. Would not want to be you. So a lot of this stuff isn't a measure of who you are as a person. It's about accepting what you know and what you don't know and where your liabilities lie And if you're always looking out for the customer rather than just trying to boast about how good you are, you'll be more successful when you look out for your customer. You'll have a longer career. But again, it's very much a lot of the hobbyist mentality that I deal with. And I'm trying to shake them. Like, this isn't how the world works. And I guess by encouraging you to listen to the business podcast that I talk about, I think if you hear it from other people in the industry, it'll start to sink in. And better yet, go interview for a position as a computer tech and see if you can answer their questions. I think most of the hobbyists don't know anywhere near as much as they think they do. And the first time they screw up, if they're lucky enough to get hired, they're going to realize the consequences are very serious. And it sometimes takes that experience for some people to accept or to fully understand what I'm trying to convey. Like, I can't explain to you what hot means. The word hot, H-O-T, I really can't explain it. But when you burn yourself, you will have a profound understanding of the meaning of that word. I can't really explain what balance is, but when you get on a bicycle for the first time with two wheels on the bicycle or a unicycle, you will have a profound understanding of the meaning of the word balance that no words can convey. And in such the same way that there's the difference between a hobbyist and a professional, there are some people that it's just not going to get through their head until they go and have that experience as an attempt to be a professional. And then and only then will they be burned and understand the meaning of the word hot. It's what it takes for some people. And I understand that. I understand the skepticism and the disbelief because they don't know and they have no basis for comparison or reference other than what they see and hear on the internet. And as a result of that, it's living life virtually versus living life in reality. And they don't have anything similar. Virtual reality is numb. It has no feeling. It has no momentum. It has no inertia. It is a very numb environment, like being on painkillers. There's no physical feeling to it. It can make you angry and it can make you happy, but it has no smell. It has no touch. If you were doing a racing car simulator and you turn right really fast in the car, you don't get pushed over to the side holding onto the wheel as you would in real life. The speed of acceleration of an aircraft simulator and you're taking off, there's nothing pushing you back. There's no gravity pushing you back. And the reality of death, if you fail, it's not there. It's a game, it's a simulation, and so the risks aren't real. And if you jump out of an airplane with a parachute in real life, it's a feeling that nobody can ever explain to you. If you jump out of a parachute on Call of Duty, out of a plane with a parachute, there's no sense of falling, there's no sense of fear. It's very numb. The whole thing is numb. And so what ends up happening with these hobbyists is they're all numbed up. That's basically the way I would explain it. And then when you actually go into the career and into the field, suddenly all these feelings, we will feel these sensations that you cannot feel as a hobbyist, and you cannot imagine them. And your mind can't wrap itself around it because you have no point of reference. It's not possible to convey it. I'm doing the best I can, but I think the doubters need to go get a job in IT, and then they can come back and apologize. That's what it takes. It's the only way I can think of that they'll fully understand. Shane wants to know, Carey, do you foresee a time which SSDs will come down in price to the point mechanical drives will not be worth the risk? It's already happened. Look at a price of a 240 gig solid state drive. It's $30 on sale. A lot of residential customers don't need more than that. Most of them don't. That right there makes it a far better value than a mechanical drive. In fact, even a 2 terabyte mechanical drive is what, $60, $70? And a 2 terabyte SSD is under $200. Now, a couple of years ago, that wouldn't have been the case. And the SSD technology will leapfrog hard drive technology in storage. It'll just leapfrog it. A solid state drive will go from 64 gigs when they first came out to 128, 256, 512, 1 terabyte, 2 terabytes, 4 terabytes, 8 terabytes, 16 terabytes, 32 terabytes, 64 terabytes, 128 terabytes. Suddenly now we're going to leapfrog over the hard drive storage capacities, it's not far from now. And prices are dropping constantly. Solid state drives and RAM prices have been in a free fall since around December. Prices have just dropping dramatically. We'll see how far that goes, but there's never been a better time to upgrade your RAM or to go to solid state storage than now, and it may only get better. OR has contributed $5. Hey, thank you for that. What browser do I use? Because I broadcast on YouTube, I use Google Chrome because Google owns YouTube and it all works very well together. Stealth Mode says, I'm getting to the point where I need business insurance. Go to technibble.com for any computer business advice, contracts, invoicing. All that stuff is talked about in great detail. Technibble.com. That's run by Bryce Whitty. You can search here on my YouTube channel for my interview with Bryce Whitty. He came out from Australia when I was in Chicago for a convention and just set up the camera in the hotel room, and he and I talked a bit about TechNibble and why he does what he does. Great guy. Enjoyable to listen to the Australian accent, you know. And I feel like, man, I flew 3 or 4 hours to get to Chicago. He flew 14 hours. So it was a real unique opportunity to get to meet the man behind the website and talk to him a bit. So check out the video, my interview with Bryce Whitty done a few years ago. He's still doing it today. TechNibble's as big as ever. And, you know, people that have been in the industry for years and years and years, I think they're worth listening to. They must be doing something right. Wild Ones contributed 10 Australian dollars and says, great show. Cheers from Australia. Thank you. I'll put a link to TechNibble in there for you in the chat room. I guess instead of a bite, it's a nibble. And I'm using the wrong keyboard. Of course I'm doing that. Let's go up here and do this. TechNibble. There it is. And I'll just copy and paste that in the chat room for you guys. Great resource if you really are serious about being a real tech. Windows 10 become a paid service? I have no idea. I have no idea. There will not be a Windows 11. Microsoft has said 5 years ago, Windows 10 is the last version of Windows. I personally think they're going to go back on that. I think they're going to have to. But for now, they're sticking to their guns. There will be no Windows 11 or 12 or 13, or it's just Windows 10, and it is not a paid service. But they are, you know, selling add-ons through the Microsoft Store and Microsoft OneDrive storage and things like that. They're finding ways to do microtransactions, and I suspect it's going to be more of that. Whether or not the OS becomes a subscription service, I can't say. No idea. I don't see that as being a business model that will work. They'll probably follow more of the Android business model, which is you can have the operating system and then we'll just profit from the apps. Apple does the same thing. I suspect Microsoft will follow what Android and Apple are doing and have been doing since the beginning. But I could be completely wrong. There's no telling what Microsoft will do. What are the symptoms of a dying power supply? Just about anything. There's no one symptom that identifies a dying power supply. Certainly there's a symptom that identifies a dead power supply. But a dying power supply, you could pretty much name any computer-related tech symptom, and the power supply is possibly what's causing it. Anything at all. From overheating to blue screens to random failure could possibly be caused by a failing power supply. The only way you'd know for sure is to swap the power supply out for another one. And if the exact same behavior repeats itself, it's happening from some other source. And that's the simplest, cheapest, and fastest way to check a bad power supply. Not rocket science. Wild One says, great advice on switching from the RAID to IDE or AHCA mode. From a previous video, I had to go and edit the registry to get it to work, but booting Windows 10 in safe mode and restarting. Yeah, it's simple. Simple when you know how, right? And again, when you're paid by the hour to get stuff done, it's not just the inconvenience of, oh, how long is this going to take? For you, it's the inconvenience to the customer. How long am I going to remain unproductive? And when are you going to help the next person in line who's waiting for you? So there's a lot of pressure to get it done and get to the next one in my line of work. So you have to work efficiently. Oops. Sean Mullins says, hello from Detroit. Hello, Sean. I will be in Grand Rapids September 20th through the 22nd at the TechCon Unplugged Expo there in the, the Holiday Inn, I think, there in Grand Rapids. And that's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Tickets, they're $199. I'm not throwing the event. I'm going as a guest. I'm paying for a ticket like anybody else, but that's paying for the food because they're feeding you all 3 days and they're giving you, I think there's like a night at Dave & Buster's with a gift card and food there. So it should be a bargain, honestly. And hopefully I'll see many of you out there. I hope you'll come out. It's a beautiful time to be in Michigan. It'll be Western Michigan at Grand Rapids. You can take a little road trip to Holland if you're from out of town and look at that little Dutch town. It's really neat. Not too far from there. Grand Rapids is the second largest city, I believe, in the state of Michigan. So there's plenty to do if you want to show up a few days early or stay a few days after. It's a beautiful city, everything from kayaking a river to shopping the downtown area, safe city, and the weather should be gorgeous. If you can't tell, I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to get back to Michigan. Can't wait. Can a bad power supply fry the other components? Well, what fries a component? What causes it to fry? Generally over voltage, shorting out. If something inside of the power supply, which is providing, it's sort of like saying, look, if I poison the air you breathe, can it really kill you? Where else are you going to get air from? Like, unless you have a separate tank of oxygen just for you, you're going to die or get very ill if you don't get the air, the oxygen that you need. So in much the same way, for electronic parts, power is what brings them to life. And if the power gets spiked if the polarity gets reversed, if anything like that should happen, it will kill the component no differently than poisoning the air that you breathe will kill you. You need it to live. And electronic components need power. And if that power is not correct, depending on what's not correct about it, will determine the damages, as well as the sensitivity of the components installed. Papa Charlie says, greetings from Argentina to all the community. Carey, many, many thanks for what you do. It is every day a pleasure to watch you. Keep up the good work. Big hug. Well, thank you very much, Papa Charlie. I'm trying to think, what's a big city in Argentina? Buenos Aires? Is that the big one? Testing my geography. Would it not be easier to install Windows on a ROM and update via EEPROMs? Don't know. In general, that has not been done for numerous reasons, mostly involving cost and performance, the length of time it takes. But who knows what the future holds? I'd certainly like to see Windows on a chip already installed on the board. And when you buy the board, you're buying for the Windows. You're paying for the Windows. You get rid of all the piracy. It certainly makes sense to me. But I don't think we're there yet. Well, clearly we're not there yet, but will we ever get there? I don't know. I don't know. Come out to Indiana and see the big race. Yeah. The Indy 500. With the, what do they call it? The Brickyard, something like that. I was always a big Indy car fan. Used to go to the Phoenix International Raceway and see the Indy cars racing. And of course, after the Indy 500, the next race is Belle Isle, which I've never been to, just outside of Detroit. But I always watch it on TV. So I hope I will make it one day to Belle Isle. But yes, after the Indy 500, the next race, the following, when a lot of drivers don't participate in it after the Indy 500, but it's the Belle Isle race the week afterwards. What are your thoughts on the future of tech support and tips for the next generation? Well, as long as there are corporations using computers to process the business they're running for customers, there's going to be need for an IT department. With regards to tech support, I don't really care. Tech support is the lowest on the totem pole of support knowledge. Generally, the people who get hired for that position have no actual experience or education in the field. They're script readers who are taught answers to specific questions that relate to that specific product. And outside of that, they don't know any more than your general residential computer user. It's just a job they don't have a passion for, a job, generally speaking, that doesn't pay well, and they're abused constantly by callers on the phone, being rude and abusive. So as far as I'm concerned, tech support could go away, especially as the generations coming up are growing up to the technology. My generation grew up with the technology, and my father's generation grew up mostly without the technology. So we've got different perspectives in the three generations, or there's four generations now, really, right? There's my, what would be the great-grandfather, which in my case would be like my father. The grandfather, which in my case could theoretically be me very easily. The father, which would be the kids that I would have had. And then their kids, which would be the equivalent of my grandchildren. So we've got four generations alive right now, maybe even five in some extreme cases, and how we grew up. So I can only speak from my perspective, and my perspective is I grew up with computers. I think I'm the only generation that grew up as computers grew up. So I was growing up at the same time computers were growing up. Now computers have mostly matured and things are getting smaller, but they're mostly not changing and inventing new stuff anymore. It's mostly just the same old stuff, miniaturized. You can put a computer in your pocket now. Couldn't even dream of that, back in 1985. So the kids today, or the what would be the equivalent of an adult child today and their children, they're growing up to computers, and that's a different thing. That's a different thing entirely. And such that they understand better what to expect from the technology, but I also feel like they trust it too much. They rely too much on it, that it's gonna be there, and it may not always be there. And so when it comes to that sort of level of support's gonna be different for that generation than for generations before them. And what that is, I don't know, but there'll always be a need. The question is, how big of a need? There's still people growing up today without computers, but everybody grew up without computers in the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s. And then some of us in the 1980s had an interest in it when they became available for home use. And I was one of those people. So I got to evolve as a person, as a child into adulthood, as computers were evolving from a hobbyist. People would say, what do you have a computer for? What do you do with it? People didn't understand it. And until there was something called a killer app. So the killer app for the home computer was VisiCalc. And VisiCalc was the first application that justified owning a computer for a real reason. You could get work done. For everybody else, it was just fun. It was interesting. It was intriguing. It was a curiosity. It was a hobby. VisiCalc legitimized it, and VisiCalc justified it. And from there, we have what's called the killer app. Virtual reality has no killer app right now, and that's why it's just not caught on. If a killer app comes out for virtual reality that justifies its existence in the business world ubiquitously, such as VisiCalc did, then we'll see it take off. And that's true of any technology, right? So, yeah, it'll be interesting what the future holds with regards to that kind of support. Don't know, but it'll be completely different. I personally, because I grew up with computers, I think it's hilarious that you guys call those things phones. I just think that's hilarious. It is funny to me that you call this a phone. I want you to think about that. You're calling this a phone. This is not a phone. This is a computer that can make phone calls. It is first and foremost, when you break it down, this is nothing more than a computer that has software that allows it to make phone calls. That's it. That's all it is. A phone, a real telephone, is a device that is analog. Well, it doesn't even matter if it's analog. It's a device that does one thing. It does two things. It plays audio that you can hear, and it has a microphone to send audio back, whether that's to one person or multiple people or a number of different lines. That is what a phone does. That is what a telephone is to me in my generation. When I grew up, that's what a telephone was. A telephone did not have apps. A telephone, you did not play games on a phone. You used a telephone for one reason and one reason only, and that was to make or receive a telephone call. And so now we have computers that have been minimized. And you think about this, the amount of RAM, the amount of storage, the amount of processing power that's in this right here is far greater at a far cheaper price than the big computers we had, the 8-bit computers that I had, the Atari, the Apple, the Commodore. And you could make phone calls with those too, by the way. Back in the 80s, if you wanted to make a phone call with your computer, you could use your dial-up modem and use that to initiate calls. No problem. But we never said, this is our phone. I could make phone calls with this, but I wouldn't call this a phone. But this is as much a phone as this is. You just got to plug a headset into it. So what? I can plug a headset into this too. And the other reason I don't think we should call it a phone is fewer and fewer people actually call anybody anymore. People are mostly texting each other, sending emails and that sort of thing. Especially the younger people. They'll send emojis or Snapchat, but they don't actually talk. And but that generation still calls this a phone. It's weird. It's the weirdest thing. It's such a wrong use of the language, and it's such a inaccurate description of what this is. It's almost minimizing it to simplicity. This is far from a simple device. Far from it. It's a very complex device. It would require a microscope for board level repair on these, which, by the way, almost nobody does that anymore. They'll swap parts out. I'm sure somebody out there does it, but they're few and far between to find, and cases are often glued closed, and they're very difficult to work on. But that being said, this is a computer all day long. That's all this is a computer. If you'd asked me in 1985, you think you're going to be walking around with a computer in your pocket? I'd be like, what the hell would I want to do that for? But there was no internet, right? So you'd think, well, what do I need, VisiCalc on my phone? That's weird. So anyway, it's really hard to determine what the future holds because it will be a surprise no matter what it is. Paul has correctly identified my Galaxy S8. Well done, Paul, because the S8 and the S9 look exactly alike. But this is a permanent change. You know, we're not going back to phones. We're not going backwards. This is going to be around until the next thing that replaces it. And then it's just shocking to me that we call it a phone. I can't get over that. It would be like, I'm trying to think of a good example. It'd be like calling no, that's not going to work either. Maybe it'd be like calling a motorcycle a roller coaster. You know, it's a completely different device. Yes, it moves you, and yes, it's exhilarating, or it can be. I'd say a motorcycle is a lot more dangerous. It's a lot more real. It doesn't have all the safety that a roller coaster has. And it serves an entirely different purpose. So I don't know. It's not the best analogy, but that's all I got for right now. But yeah, I can't believe they call this a phone. If everybody was using it as a phone, it would make more sense. But they don't even use it for that much. They use it for everything else that you use a computer for. It's a computer. At the very least, you go to Star Trek and call it a communicator. That would be a much more accurate description of what that is. It's a communication device. But then, so's this. And so's YouTube, and so's that camera. It's all communication devices. Oh, and Great Dane there just said that. The communicator looks like today's flip phones. Flip phones were designed after that. The original Motorola Razr was designed after the Star Trek flip communicator. They've admitted that. Sid wants his own personal holodeck so I can have fun. You know what's more fun than a personal holodeck? Actual real life. Now we know why so many people like oxycodone and fentanyl. Everybody wants to be numb. Nobody wants to feel anything. Go to your holodeck and feel nothing. No consequences, no risk, no adrenaline rush. It's weird because when people are at the verge of death, is usually when they feel the most alive. And you'll never feel that in a holodeck. Thomas Russell's contributed $20. He says, Carey, thanks for all you do for disabled veterans, all your great info and build info. You are to be commended. Well, thanks for contributing to the channel, Thomas. I appreciate that. We will have a couple more computers to give away here very soon. We will be still focusing on supplying some computers to the disabled American veterans. But again, I don't announce when that's going to be. I want it to be somebody who's, the people to receive these, I want them to be members of our community, not people who just show up for a free computer and leave. So until we take care of our own, then we'll at that point reach out to others outside of the community. But it's with contributions like yours that make that possible. So thank you. Fred Adams said, so is my watch. I can make calls on it. Yeah, I mean, your watch, that kind of a watch isn't a watch. It's a watch in the sense that you wear it on your wrist, but so is a bracelet. You know, I could put a watch strap on this and put this on my wrist and call it a watch. It's got the time on it. It's too big to be a watch. Have you seen some of the watches by Fossil that are this big around? Who's wearing these things and why? It's just a computer with a wrist strap. But that's a good point. Roberto says, I believe all phones should have FM radio as standard. Radio's dying. Radio's going away. These generations don't have the patience for listening to what a radio station wants to play or to listen to the incessant advertising. This generation wants their music on demand, the songs they want to hear. And if songs are being played, that the songs being played are using an algorithm that suggests that if you like this, you know, by telling it what music you like, services like iTunes, Pandora, Spotify, SoundCloud, they can then recommend music they think you're going to like to introduce you to new music, play less advertising or no advertising at all if you pay for it. Radio, I anticipate, will be gone in our lifetime, you know, in my lifetime. I think another 20, 30 years tops, radio will be gone and the FCC will reuse those wavelengths for other things. I don't think radio is going to be around much longer. I could be wrong, but I very rarely meet a younger generation person who listens to the radio. It'd be a waste of tech to put that in a phone. Have I ever tried VR? Of course I've tried VR. Who do you think I am? It's stupid. Look, so here's the thing with the current status of VR. Unless you have a very vertical need for it, in other words, you're in a specific industry where VR can assist you, it's just not ubiquitous. It's not something that appeals to everybody or solves problems like VisiCalc did so universally back in the day. VR for most people is a roller coaster style experience in the sense that they ride it. You know, you put your headset on and you do that and you have that experience. Okay, I'm done with this, and you take it off and you're done. There's some pretty interesting games. I can't remember. Jimmy Fallon was doing one where you had boxes are coming at you and you swing at you. That's going to get old. You're going to do it. You're going to be like, wow, that was really cool. And you're going to be like, wow, this is really boring real fast. There's a couple of art exhibits I went to that used VR for the art exhibit. And, you get to look around and see, and you go, oh, okay, yeah, it's telling a story. There's people in a room talking about an alien abduction. They had another art exhibit where you're on a canoe and you're going through this river and the canoe flips upside down. And this thing goes on for like 9 minutes, and the whole time you can look around and it's beautiful music playing. It's very calming and relaxing and ethereal. And you're like, okay, I'm done with that. You take the headphones off, you take the VR headset off, you're done. And that's why these VR companies are closing up left and right. And Google's VR stuff has failed spectacularly. And none of the VR stuff, despite all of the hype by companies like Newegg and the publications, they wrote so many articles on it, and it's gone absolutely nowhere. And I would like to see something happen with it, but there's just no point in it. It's a very much a Disneyland kind of experience. You go to Disneyland every day, it's going to get old real quick. It's the same thing over and over and over again, and it gets boring. But you go to Disneyland, you do it once, maybe once a year, it's very enjoyable. But with VR, that's the current state, and that's the way it's always been. When Newegg wanted me to do videos on VR, I refused to do them. And they said, why? And I said, because there's no point in it. They wanted me to do a video on, what was it, the HTC Vive? What's the status of that? Do they still make that? Oculus Rift? I think Oculus is still making them, but we're just not talking about it anymore. There was a big marketing push to shove this down the throats of consumers, even though it had no real added value to anything other than a really cool one-time experience. And that's the reality. Whether you like it or not, that's what's happened. Now, VR's not dead. It's dead for some places. I mean, can you even get Google Cardboard anymore? I don't think so. I don't even think it's available anymore. It just never really took off. But that doesn't mean it's not going to. They just haven't found the killer app for it yet. And reality is so much better than virtual reality. It really is. I don't understand this obsession with pretend. Not as an adult. As a child, pretending is a big part of childhood. But as an adult, pretending, unless you're an actor, it's often just referred to as lying. So if you want to lie to yourself and live in a false reality and be secluded and away from people, sounds like a very sad life. So VR is going to have to overcome that. Now, if there's VR like Ready Player One, hey, all bets are off. Then everybody will have a sad life, but a great virtual life. Whatever happened to that Microsoft Kinect? People hear what they want to hear. So the market doesn't lie. Just look at the numbers. It's just not there. It's never been there. I think one of the great issues with anything virtual is the inability to experience it with other people in your immediate vicinity. And I just think it's a sad state of human affairs. We do it already with our phones. When you're in the room with another human being and you spend way too much time focusing on this than the other person that you're with. I just think it's a very callous and cold thing to do to somebody. It's as if you're saying, I would rather be doing this. Well, it's not as if you're saying, you are saying it. You are saying, I would rather be doing this. This is more important than you. Would you be watching my video if all I did is this the whole time? How does that make you feel? I'm not listening. Shouldn't you be with this person instead of being with the person you're with, if that's where you'd rather be? And then I'd say, well, why are you here? Thank you. Computer parts. That's what I was waiting on. Okay, well, I think that's going to wrap up today's show. We're getting close to 5 o'clock here, and that'll be dinner time for the dogs. RC Pilot says, yep, just go out to dinner and look around the room and everybody's using their phones. Yeah, so what me and my friends do is we stack our phones in the center of the table, and we have a rule. The first person that touches their phone pays the check. Very simple. The great thing about these devices is they wait for you. When this rings or this beeps or this vibrates, it doesn't mean you have to instantly be a servant and say, yes, you called, you rang, you vibrated. What can I do for you right now? I'll be driving the car and putting other people's lives in danger because that's how important you are to me. I worship you. Oh, Monolith from 2001: A Space Odyssey. You looked a lot bigger in the movie. No, that's your choice. This is a servant and has always been intended to be your servant, not the other way around. And I feel bad for people who sheepishly give up. They act like sheep, is what I mean to say. They're not sheepish. They're acting sheepish, and that they are succumbing to servitude to a black monolith. Stanley Kubrick and Arthur, what was his name? Arthur C. Clarke. Sure did know a lot about the future in 1969, didn't they? They just got the proportions wrong. But whatever this thing is beeping at you about or vibrating at you about, it will wait until you're done. Do you hear my phone ring during this broadcast? How annoying. I mean, I can't control my doorbell ringing. I have packages arriving. I don't want them sitting out at my front door where porch pirates can grab them. But anybody who's trying to reach me while I'm live will wait. I promise you. They're not on the edge of death. I just have to say this thing to you before I die. Well, leave it in a voicemail so I can hear it over and over again. I want to make sure I understand it. How annoying would that be on a Hollywood set where an actor has got to, okay, in this scene, I need you to cry. I need you to be really upset. Action. And some lighting guy's phone goes off right in the middle of the scene that you've worked yourself up and you're just doing the best take you've ever done. And it's one of the crew didn't silence their phone. How livid would you be? And if you're the one financing the movie and it's costing you more money to have to reshoot that scene, every minute you film is costing, you've got everybody on the union, the whole crew, they're all being paid literally by the minute, and you're running late because somebody didn't turn their phone off. How pissed off would you be? So it's a very selfish thing to do to other people around you. When you're home alone, you're by yourself, knock yourself out. But when you're with other people, you should have the courtesy of acknowledging their existence and enjoying their company as they do yours. And when you do it, they do it. When you stop, I promise you they'll stop. Just start asking them questions. When they're doing this and you're with somebody who's doing it, put your phone on silent or do not disturb. Say, how was your day today? It's fine. What do you mean fine? When you start demanding, see, that's the person you should be giving your attention to. That's the person there in the room with you right now. This person's not with you. That person will wait. And if it's that important, go be with that person. Say, listen, I got to go because I need to be with this person more than I need to be with you. That would at least be honest. It's really not a question of turning it off and never turning it back on again. It's a question of deciding how much time you want to dedicate to people in real world, in the real life that are there in the room with you now, and the people who exist elsewhere. It's finding that balance. It's finding the balance that you're not doing this more than you're doing something else, that you find something else. That's all. That's all I'm saying. It doesn't have to be one extreme or the other. Find a balance to it. Brian Larson's contributed $2. He says, that's for making me laugh. Right on, Brian. Thank you. And West Side Lord contributed $5. He says, a little help with your awesome dog's dinner. Hey, thank you. Yeah, it's about that time. Ben Decura contributed $4.99. Thanks, Ben. And the same can be true of anything. If all you do is one thing, do something else. If all you do is play baseball, find some time in your life to do something else. If all you do is play video games, find something else to break up your day. If all you do is stay on this all day, find something else that also interests you as much as that does, so that you have a hard time deciding which thing do I want to do today or right now. And some people have a serious addiction to it, which is really sad. They're just completely addicted to it. And it'll be interesting to see how the government legislates, or if they legislate that in the future, with regards to the techniques the companies use to get you addicted to it. That's potential legislation that we could see in the next 5 years. It's pretty bad. But it's still up to you to control yourself. It's not for you to say, well, it's not my fault, it's the phone's fault. It's the software developer apps that are taking advantage. No, you're allowing it, you are consenting to it, and you are voluntarily participating in it. And I'm not saying you have to stop. What I am suggesting is that you can set an amount of time. Like, I'm going to go hiking in the woods. How long are you going to be gone? Yeah, probably 3-4 hours. Okay, I'm going to get on my phone. How long are you going to be on your phone? All I'm saying is you should set a time and then stick to it, and everything will be there tomorrow. Or doesn't have to be tomorrow. Take an hour. Take an hour break. Don't look at it. Put it away. Out of sight, out of mind. Turn the notifications off. Focus on reality. Focus on your life right now, where you are now, in the space you're in now. It's its own reward. Don't, if you don't want to. And don't experience the reward. That's fine with me too. But it's very considerate to other people you are surrounded by to acknowledge their existence and give them the respect that they deserve. Your attention. They deserve your eyes on them. That is your gift to them. When you do this, you're saying, I'm more important than you and you don't matter to me. This matters. The person I'm talking to on the other side matters more than you do. Why are you with me? Why don't you go be with that person? I don't need to be with that person. I'm doing it now. No, you're not. And when it's children doing this, it's acceptable. When it's adults doing this, it's just sad. So with that, I think I'll wrap it up on that bright note, the sad state of the human condition. But not everybody's like that. And again, it's not about turning it off and never using it. It's just about being in control. Feel like you're in control and you're the one making the decisions. And you're deciding how long you're going to do this. You're deciding how long you're going to go to the gym, or how long you decide how long you're going to do stuff. You always do. Your GPS will tell you how long it is before you get to your destination. You should do the same thing with this. That's all I'm saying. That's all. So guys, thank you so much for all the contributions. Thank you to my moderators. We had a couple of troublemakers trying to make some trouble. They didn't get too far, as usual, which I love very much. And I guess I will put this thing away in the back office and wait until I get that dumb little standoff and screw, the tiniest little part, you know? And then I'll decide if I want to clone what I've already done or just reinstall again. It really doesn't matter. And I should check and see if it activated. I don't know if it activated or not. I'm not worried about it. It'll be fine either way. So I am planning to be back tomorrow for a couple hours. It won't be a very long show tomorrow. I've got plans with real people. I mean, people, not real people, but people that will be in the same room with me, going out to dinner and going out to an improv show. And I don't do that every day either. So I'm looking forward to it. It's friends I don't see very often, and we'll have a lot of catching up to do. So I'm looking forward to that. And then I think that's about it. So thanks so much for watching. Thanks you guys for contributing to the show today, and for all my friends in blue for keeping it civil. For all the viewers, thanks for tuning in. I will see you all again very, very soon. Until then, bye for now.